As a wise man once said, app security is important. The security of your mobile app is a broad topic ranging from protecting endpoints to strong user authentication to many more. And often it's a huge challenge for any developer, but luckily the Firebase suite of products gives us many products to secure our app. We will tackle in this video Firebase App Check. You might ask, but how does AppCheck works under the hood? AppCheck acts as another layer of security on top of other Firebase services to protect them from malicious access. When you enable AppCheck, it requires each incoming request to have a valid AppCheck token attached to it, and any request that fails to meet the condition will be rejected, which help reduce abuse of your services and causes less spikes on your cloud bill or any unexpected billing. Our roadmap will consist of many chapters from start to finish in various concepts and configurations needed for us to get familiar with the AppCheck setup process. Our first stopping point is how does AppCheck work? AppCheck relies on the on-device attestation providers on both Android and iOS. That gives us the device token for your app, assessing that the device running the app is legit. After getting the token, it sends it to the AppCheck server, which validates it against your app configurations in the Firebase console. After the validation, it sends it back to your app where the AppCheck SDK caches it for future use for any future call to your Firebase services like Firestore or storage or callable cloud functions. Now we need to configure the default providers for both Android and iOS. First, go ahead and enable AppCheck from the Firebase console, and for the Android app we will need the SHA-256 fingerprint, which we can generate from inside our project. To do so, navigate to the Android directory and run the Gradle sign-in report task, and locate the debug variant with the debug config and copy the SHA-256 string and paste it into the console. For the iOS apps, there are two attestation providers, AppAttest and Device Check. And to configure them, we need an auth key which we can generate from Apple Developer Portal. Go to Certificates and under Keys, create a new key and give it a name and mark select the Device Check capability. Then download the key and keep note of the key ID as well. Back to the console, upload the auth key file and set the key ID and your team ID, which you can get from the top right corner in your Apple Developer Portal. Now we finished our console setup, let's shift our gears to code level setup. After initializing the Firebase app and the Firebase App Check instance, call the activate method, which accepts Android and iOS provider classes. For the Android provider, we will give the Play Integrity class and the Debug provider if the app is running debug versions of our app. As for the Apple provider, we will be set to the AppAttest with fallback, which will use AppAttest if available. If not, it will fall back to Device Check, as AppAttest is only supported in iOS 14 Plus. Now that's out of the way, we need to get the debug token so we can test our integration locally without being blocked by the AppCheck server from accessing our Firebase services. For the iOS app, open Xcode with the command open iOS runner.xc workspace and go to the runner project and click edit scheme. And then in the arguments tab, in the arguments passed on launch section, add -fir debug enabled. Now let's launch our application in the iOS simulator. After it runs, inspect the logs in the terminal. You will find an App Check debug token, copy it, and then in the Registered iOS App tab in the App Check console, click on Managed Debug Tokens and add it there. As for Android, we can get the debug token just by running the app in the Android emulator, and the token should be printed in the terminal logs. Copy it and add it as well inside the registered Android app inside App Check console. Now that we added the debug tokens to the Firebase console, so we can develop our apps locally without getting blocked by the App Check service. Our next step is to enable enforcement. Enabling enforcement will allow us to protect our services from any invalid request that doesn't contain a valid App Check token. We can enable it for many services like Firestore, storage, and callable cloud functions. Click on any service you want and then click Enforce. Firebase App Check is a great way to add an extra layer of security to your app with little to no cost, alongside security rules for Firestore and cloud storage.